Hello everyone and welcome to Talking NEPA. I'm Gary Perna. Thanks for joining us here on WYLN TV. Today we're going to talk about emergency rooms, what they're for, and why sometimes you need to be a little patient with the doctors and staff there. Today I'm joined by Dr. Kira Weaver from Lehigh Valley Hospital Hazleton, and we're going to talk about the importance of emergency medicine and why sometimes it's very important for us to relax and let the doctors do their job. That's all coming up this week on Talking NEPA. Stay with us.
The summer of Jeep, Wrangler, Cherokee, All-American Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Your new adventure starts now. Lease a new Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Sport 4x4 for $299 for 36 months. Let them hear you coming in the new Jeep Cherokee Latitude Plus 4x4. Lease for just $199 for 42 months. And get 0% for 60 months plus $1,000 in bonus cash on the 2019 Jeep Cherokee. Come see why you'll be kicking it during the summer of Jeep at allamericanjeep.net.
Go hog wild for Iron Pigs Baseball. WYLN is televising the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs live. America's favorite pastime on your local network, WYLN TV 35. See the stars of tomorrow at Coca-Cola Park. Don't miss any of the games here on WYLN TV 35. Visit WYLNTV.com for a complete Iron Pigs schedule. Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs on WYLN, your home for live sports. SJ Kowalski is your Mitsubishi Diamond Contractor. They can install a Mitsubishi electric Mr. Slim ductless heating and cooling system. Mr. Slim systems are designed to make any living space in your home inviting. You can have a different temperature control for every room in your home. The money-saving technology can save you 25 to 50% on your heating bill. For Mitsubishi, Rinnai, and trained comfort specialists, call SJ Kowalski at 570-455-2600.
Do you like craft beer? Do you want to learn the right way to sample wine? How about visiting a restaurant that has a unique flavor or a crazy food challenge? These are just some of the things we'll be featuring on our show. Wine, Hops, and Road Stops. Jeff Bonomo and his co-host, Alan Giannetti, welcome you into the world of craft beer, great wine, and good food. Wine, Hops, and Road Stops.
And welcome back to Talking NEPA, everyone, here on WYLN TV. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Perna. Today I'm with Dr. Kira Weaver from Lehigh Valley Physicians Group, emergency room physician, and a local girl here with us today, and we're so happy to have you. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. You are right here from the greater Hazleton area, and I believe a Bishop Hafey graduate?
I am a Bishop Hafey graduate. So I grew up in primarily Cunningham, Pennsylvania. I lived in Sugarloaf, Cunningham. I currently live in the Drums area. Mm-hmm. So I've been from this area pretty much my whole life except for the time I was in medical school. I did graduate from Bishop Hafey in 2002. I went to undergraduate at College Misericordia up in Dallas, Pennsylvania, and then I attended medical school out at Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine in their very, very warm campus of Erie, Pennsylvania. Then I returned over here to Lehigh Valley Health Network for their emergency medicine residency, which is where I've been for the past 4 years prior to coming back up to Hazleton.
So a little busy, and it's great having you here, and it's great to have a local person right here talking to us and working in our hospital. You know, you kind of know some people, you know your way around, so it's always great to have you. So today we really want to talk about the role of an emergency room physician and really the emergency department, especially here at Lehigh Valley Hospital, Hazleton. We have seen a spike in people using the emergency department more and more, which creates a little bit of some wait time. So I wanted to have somebody on the show to kind of explain what goes on behind those ED doors and put it into perspective that everyone can kind of understand. We hear people say, oh, you know, I went up to the emergency room and I had to wait. Well, they may not understand what really is going on. So, Dr. Weaver, I hope you can give us, shed some light on what goes on behind those doors, because it's not just simple you walk in and you're able to see a doctor right away, is it?
No. So, emergency medicine is an interesting specialty in general. It's actually, it is a specialty. We actually, as a specialty, celebrated our 50th year within the last year. So emergency medicine specializes in resuscitation and for also recognizing life-threatening illnesses and injuries. It's an interesting specialty because you have to know a little bit about a lot of things. So we have to know a good deal of medicine. We have to know about traumatic injuries, trauma, and then we take care of patients from the time they're born, as well as all the way to the geriatric population. So it makes it very unique compared to other medical specialties. Because our focus is primarily on recognizing life-threatening illnesses or injury, as well as resuscitation, this is where sometimes where your ER visit may be not as satisfying because you may feel that you are ill, which you may be, or that you may have injury, but sometimes we have to, as a department, kind of see who's sick, who's not sick, who needs to come back right away, who can wait, based on our own staffing, based on everyone's safety. That's another concern. And then also keeping beds available for ambulances that come in occasionally. So, at least having a bed in case someone that would come in that was very, very ill from the community, that they have somewhere to put that patient off of a stretcher. So all these go into how we kind of determine who comes back.
So let me ask you this. We know we have gotten some comments about wait time, and you kind of elaborated to that in there. So if I walk in the emergency room and I haven't been feeling good for a couple days, now day 4 I decided I'm going to come to the emergency room to be seen by somebody. And you're sitting, you're told, well, have a seat, we'll be with you, and an hour or so may go by. Some people may not realize that in that time frame, there may have been a cardiac arrest that came in, a stroke, a trauma incident, all through the ambulance doors. And we see, because of our growing population here, we're seeing all these injuries and illnesses now coming in, via ambulance where it's a little busier. So people really do need to understand that this all takes time. It's not like there's a team of 17,000 people working with one person. There is a lot that goes into one case for each person. So, yeah, you're right with that. One of the things that we look at is when you get into the emergency department, you get triaged. Okay, and that helps determine a little bit how sick you are, just based off some basic information like your vital signs, your complaint, and generally how you appear. And this is actually done most places, not just in Hazleton. It's actually done by nursing. And this is something that's been studied, well known. They have basically a formula that they come up with your severity initially. So they'll look at that. Obviously, if someone appears very ill, they get brought back right away. If someone looks like, okay, you're sick, but you're stable based on your vital signs or your complaints, and vital signs are things like your blood pressure, your heart rate, how you're breathing, basic things like that, then that might determine whether you can, sit if there's not a bed available versus if there's a bed available, come right back. Ideally we try to see patients and not make them sit, but it is a problem nationwide with emergency room crowding and wait times. And that's not something unique to Hazleton. Particularly during peak seasons such as flu, which we're fortunately not in right now, it can get extremely busy. Let me ask, emergency room physicians don't typically manage, chronic medical problems. People may be coming in with something, if they're a diabetic, may having a little issue, stuff like that, blood pressure problems. The emergency room, you're seeing them, treat them, and they may be, told to see their family doctor or the physician who regulates that. But we do see people who come in who may have a problem related to some of those medical conditions that are in the emergency room as well, correct?
Right. So sometimes patients are sent to the emergency department, sometimes by their family doctor, or they're having problems, they can't make contact with their family doctor or get seen, or sometimes they just come in on their own accord. And we can manage those things a little bit, but realistically, we don't like to do a lot of management with chronic medical conditions as long as patients are stable. And part of that is we don't know you like your family doctor or your primary care physician. The other thing is, like I have some background and I can do some basic management of your blood pressure medicine. But if you've been having high blood pressure for a long time, and your doctor has had you on different medications and knows your other medical history a lot better, sometimes those adjustments are best made by your primary care doctor. And the reason is they're going to follow up with you to see if you're doing well on those medications, to see if you have problems, if that medication is safe, because some of these different medications have some side effects. So follow-up is a really big, important part of that, is to be seen, regularly by your doctor.
Right.
Sometimes we can do things like we can talk to the family doctor, or we can do some basic things like, okay, like, you ran out of a prescription and you have an appointment in 2 weeks, but you don't have any more of your medicine, we might be able to help maintain you. But we do very basic management with that. Sometimes we leave things be. If your blood pressure's been 200 over 100 for the last year, we may not want to start you on a medication without you being followed by your doctor first.
Okay, we're going to stop right there. When we come back here on Talking NEPA, we're going to get into some of the other meat and potatoes, really, of the emergency room and how physicians' assistants, nursing staff, all that plays into the role of the emergency department here with the Lehigh Valley Hospital, Hazleton. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Pocono Raceway is summertime, where the kids are free, where fans become friends, where good times roll, and the racing is always a little tricky. Bring your friends, bring your family, just bring it, Pocono style. New this year, the Great Pocono Raceway Air Show.
Join us this week on Let's Talk Chiropractic. We're going to talk about how important your doctor's report is in claim reporting your accident. Plus, we have a special guest. That's coming up this week on Let's Talk Chiropractic. Join us.
Tri-County has been keeping your office up to speed since 1969. Everything your office needs: office supplies, personal and custom business forms, business cards, office furniture, new and used office equipment, copy, print, and scan solutions with wide format capabilities. Leasing is also available, free off-street parking, and free local delivery. Tri-County Business Machines, 117 East Broad Street in Hazleton, 570-459-0754. Family owned and operated since 1969.
WYLN has strong ties to the community, and it's committed to important causes like the American Cancer Society and Helping Hands Society telethons. WYLN's commitment to Pennsylvania continues with the broadcast of Hazleton's Fun Fest Parade and the Christmas and St. Patrick's Day parades in Wilkes-Barre. In the summer, we broadcast the Weatherly and Giants to Spare Hill Climb. And throughout the year, we provide important community services through the broadcast of town meetings, school board meetings, election night coverage, and other community events. WYLN, we're your local network.
And welcome back to Talking NEPA here on WYLN. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Weaver from Lehigh Valley Hospital. And Dr. Weaver, let's talk a little bit about some of the staff that we have in the emergency room. So people come in and they instantly want to be seen by a doctor because, we're coming to the ED, we want to see a doctor. But we have tons of people working in the emergency room, from registered nurses to physician's assistants to licensed nurse practitioners. So a lot of people doing a lot of jobs. So necessarily, you're not going to see a doctor right off the bat because there's a lot that we have to do. Maybe there's some tests that need to be ran, some questions need to be answered. Then we get to see you, correct?
Correct. So the emergency department is very team-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
It's a medical specialty that basically there's a lot of hands on deck, and there's a reason for that. Obviously, we talk about that patients, when they're really sick, they require a lot of care from different levels of training. So you have anything from your nursing staff, you have technical partners, which do things like EKGs, and they can help with like obtaining labs sometimes. And then you have your clinicians. And so this is where it gets a little more confusing sometimes to patients, is who they're being seen by and their level of training. So when we talk about what we see more popularly, like coming into the emergency departments, is you're seeing more and more what we call mid-level providers, such as physician assistants and then nurse practitioners. And they're a little bit different, but they both provide extra clinicians to the department. The interesting thing with them is they're a nice way of being seen by someone that can recognize clinically different medical problems, and then present and discuss cases with the physician, and that way the physician can kind of streamline their management a little bit and go see the patient after they had already had some lab work ordered, some imaging, things like that. PAs, for example, so a physician assistant, They're meant to help with basically like history taking, physical exam, ordering labs, tests, and they can be trained to do different procedures. So they can help out with like procedures such as laceration repairs, splinting, but they can also be trained to do critical care procedures too in sick patients. So sometimes when a patient's very sick, it requires multiple clinicians to provide that care to get things done. So sometimes there's a physician running the resuscitation, and this enables, if the physician assistant or even the nurse practitioner, they can perform some of the procedures that need to be done at the same time. So it's very important and helps get the patient their care quickly, rapidly, and effectively. Nurse practitioners are along the same lines in the sense that they originally started out as a nurse, and then they went on to do clinical training as well, and they can be trained to do different procedures and help with the, with the resuscitation efforts as well, kind of along the same lines as a PA. I think though, overall, like, sometimes patients get frustrated because they do know that the training length is different. Like I had to do a residency in emergency medicine. I think one of the things is it varies a little bit with PAs and nurse practitioners, their level of training, because one of the things that you'll see is if a nurse practitioner or PA works in a specialty for a long time, so you have some providers that work in for 20 years as a nurse practitioner or PA, they can over that time develop and have a knowledge base that's very extensive within their scope of practice. Right out of school, there might be a little bit more need for like supervision by the physician that's attending to them. But a lot of these schools, particularly locally, they actually train their providers very, very well. And these PAs and nurse practitioners come out of school well prepared to work as a clinician. And
I know we've seen them, I have friends who are physician's assistant family, and I mean the training they go through, and still today, and you as well as doctors, it goes. I mean, you're not just done school, you have to continue because things change as technology evolves, so there's a lot that goes on, and people just need to relax because we have all these things in place for reasons to have people be able to be seen. And this is something that I wanted to bring up too, is we've talked a lot about getting tests and workups and getting things prepared for when you're in an emergency room. Why are they so important? Why is it so important to get blood work done? Why do we have to do some of these workups when you're being seen in the ED that may make your stay a little longer? Right, so lab work is important, and it's unavoidable for most patients. So like depending on complaint will determine if you need labs or not. Lab work, we do lab work that gives us information fairly quickly, although it doesn't feel like it because sometimes the lab work still takes an hour and a half to come back. But it also may identify some kind of life-threatening process or something that might cause like serious illness. Things like electrolyte imbalances, your renal function, your blood counts, your platelet counts. And then there's the cardiac enzyme. So this is a common one that patients end up sometimes having longer emergency department stays. We always draw that when patients come in with their other lab work if we're concerned about a cardiac enzyme. What the cardiac enzyme does is it shows if there's stress to the heart. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're having a heart attack. It could be related to other disease processes, but it shows if there's stress on the heart. It's a time test. So we do draw it when patients first come in, but depending on your duration of symptoms, like how long you've had that discomfort or illness, may determine whether we need to get another cardiac enzyme. That sometimes the first one, like if it's within a few hours of symptoms, it may not reflect what's going on with the patient, so they may have to repeat it. The problem is the repeat test isn't about 4 hours after the first one. So a little bit of wait. A little bit of a wait. And so sometimes this is confusing, but we have to see because it's a trend over time. It's not something we can quickly take because sometimes it takes a little bit for it to show up in the patient's blood. Imaging is another thing. So imaging, sometimes we can get patients over to imaging very quick. And emergency room physicians are trained to look at x-rays pretty quickly to identify fractures or pneumonia, different processes. And we're pretty competent in that. We still like the radiologist read, especially if there's something subtle. But the other thing is CAT scan. So CAT scan, emergency medicine physicians,
we look at CAT scans, we can recognize, if there's something like if a patient has like a head bleed.
Right.
We might be able to see if there's a significant head bleed if we look at our own film and, talk to the radiologist like, hey, I see this on the image, can you read this quick? Our radiologists for certain things like our trauma alerts or stroke alerts, they have to read those films like very quickly.
Okay.
So this also, if you have a lot of trauma alerts and you have a lot of stroke alerts, this can make other images get backed up because they have to be read first.
Right.
So there's that wait for the patients that are a little bit less time sensitive, a little less sick. The other thing is our neuro films, such as our CAT scans of the brain, have to be read by a neuroradiologist, which is actually down, I believe, at Cedar Crest, but it's not on site in Hazelton. So this radiologist is reading films from multiple Lehigh Valley facilities, not just Hazelton, not just Cedar Crest. So sometimes when you have like a film that's not time sensitive, it could take a little bit of time till the radiologist gets to it, unfortunately.
So there's a lot that goes into this when you are coming into the emergency room, having all these tests and workups done, to give the doctors and PAs, everyone, a little better understanding and a better picture to what truly is happening with you, or that has been happening. So these are all very important things that we just need to learn that take a little time. We're going to stop right there real quick, but we're going to come back with a couple more questions here on Talking NEPA. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
The Hazelton Rotary Wine and Beer Festival is Saturday, August 24th from noon until 6:30 at the Hazel Township Babe Ruth Field on Hazel Township Boulevard. Come sample great craft beers and wines, taste some great food, and listen to some fantastic music. Ostrich Hat kicks off the day at noon, and Cartoon goes on at 3. Tickets are available in advance at hazeltonrotary.ticketleap.com or at any of the places listed on your screen. Watch Off the Beaten Path on WYLN TV 35 and discover the Pennsylvania you never knew existed. For over 25 years, Whitetail Preserve Shooting Range, 118 Boulevard Road in Bloomsburg, has provided professionally designed skeet, trap, and sporting clay fields. All stations are handicap accessible with resident NRA certified shooting instructors on site. Packages are available to fit anyone's budget, and there is a restaurant and catering on site. The facility is also available for weddings, business meetings, bachelor parties, private parties of any kind. Call 570-384-2314.
Breaking news, community news, local news, regional news. News that affects you, us, and our community.
That's what we do.
Every day we work to bring the news and information that is important to you, to us, and to our communities.
WYLN, we're your local network. And welcome back to Talking NEPA here on WYLN. I'm Gary Perna. Dr. Weaver is joining me, and we're continuing our discussion about the emergency room. And Doc, we also need to remember that there is a time for the emergency room, so those big things. But there's also time where, express care is very good. So, maybe you have the sniffles, scrape knee, smaller things like that, where express care can get you in and out, and the emergency room could be left for those more serious issues.
Right, so we have an express care on Broad Street that is affiliated with LVPG. So the nice thing about it is it's an option for you for the what we call the lower acuity complaints. So like I sprained my ankle, I have cold symptoms, kind of like things that you would probably go see your family doctor for the most part, but maybe you can't get in, it's the weekend, or it's a little bit later in the day, things like that. Now, what should not go to our express care would be things like chest pain, shortness of breath, more significant traumatic injuries. There's different complaints. So, and there's resources out there. You can look at, I think LVHN.org has some information about that. What's appropriate for express care versus coming to the emergency department. And it is a resource like to actually help decrease wait times, because often the express carriers are able to see patients quickly, get them in, get them out. So that may also help with like freeing up some of the emergency room beds, in the sense that for these lower complaints, if they'd be seen by the express care, it would kind of take down the waiting room times and then the beds available.
And it's also important, so through this show we talked a lot about the workings of the emergency department, what really goes on, you know, the tests have to be done, the misconception that, oh, just because I'm going to the emergency room I'm going to be in and out in an hour. We talked a lot about how there are a lot of things that need to be done to make sure that you're diagnosed correctly, that your problem is taken care of, and that it's not always the quickest thing in the world. And people need to be aware that if you're coming to the emergency room, do expect to be there a little bit, because we all want to make sure you're getting the best care and making sure that we are caring for you and make sure everything's correct.
Right. So I think that's, you know, that summarizes it very, very well. The other thing too is like sometimes patients come into the emergency department, they get a little frustrated because they were there, we did lab work, we did some imaging, and on our end things look pretty decent that maybe we can send you home.
Right.
And so then it's kind of like, well, I have this complaint, why do I have these symptoms? It doesn't mean that your workup is done. Like you need to follow up. Often we'll give a specialist, like if it's like a abdominal pain complaint, like we might give you a gastroenterologist, we might give you a surgeon to follow up with. Complaint, you know, depending on the complaint. Or you may need to follow up with like an orthopedic specialist, or even just your family doctor. So we look to basically see if there's anything life-threatening or causing serious illness, but you may have to go, you know, further for some further tests, further studies that can be done safely as an outpatient. So even though your workup at the emergency department might not have really identified the exact cause of your symptoms, it may be found at a later date, and we just kind of went through to make sure it wasn't anything surgical or, you know, medical that needs to be admitted.
So we covered a lot here, and again, we want to remind everyone that we're not handing out the medical information. We're just trying to give you the best info available for you. And I want to thank Dr. Weaver for coming on and talking with us, and we welcome you back anytime to talk about the emergency room. Again, we've told you time and time again, you have questions, talk to your physician. If you're looking for one, lvhn.org. Also, you can call 570-5014-LVH. And get all that information there. Great bunch of people working for our local hospital here. You don't need to go far to get the best medical care around right here, thanks to Lehigh Valley Health Network. I want to thank you for joining us here on Talking NEPA as we kick off here our second season into the fall. We have a lot of great shows lined up for you, so make sure you tune in right here on WYLN. For all of us, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time here on Talking NEPA.